Yeah, we're recording.
Very good. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of Executive Cabinet Member for Adults and Community Housing Services. It is Monday, the 27th of July, 2026, and we are meeting at 12 noon. There's only one significant item for us to discuss today. Firstly, I know it's not on the agenda, but I normally do ask if we have had any apologies. Vicky, has anybody said they can't make it?
No, I've not had any. Apart from, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Galloway deputising.
Okay, very good, no problem. I'll move on. So first up, as ever, is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet member decisions. The report has been circulated, all but one are complete with the other one ongoing. Do any opposition members have any comments or observations on that report before we move on to the main item for discussion? Take silence to mean no. So that's noted, Vicky, the monitoring report. So now I can ask Mark, will this be you to talk about the Housing Standards Service Review?
It will, Chair.
Okay, Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. This report seeks approval for the establishment and recruitment of a number of posts within the Housing Standards team. As detailed in Section 1, the Housing Standards team lead on a variety of functions that centre on assuring and maintaining housing quality within the borough. A combination of new legal requirements, additional investment from GMCA, and in response to member and community support for additional licensing of HMOs, a service review is undertaken with staff to assess what capacity will be required to help meet those future demands and expectations. Section 2 of the report breaks down each area in turn. The first links to the staffing requirements to deliver an effective additional licensing scheme, which is being presented to Cabinet for decision on the 17th of August. The scope of the scheme, as proposed, is borough-wide, with an expected minimum number of HMOs increasing from 222 to in excess of 1,000, a five-fold increase. Each will require assessment, regular visits to ensure the licence conditions are being met, with sufficient resource to engage proactively with landlords and enforce where necessary. To clarify, the roles will not be recruited to until and unless the additional licensing scheme is approved. Having approval for the staffing provides the opportunity to bring the scheme in at the earliest opportunity, so the roles can be created, the advertisements generated, but then wait for the approval to go through before any recruitment and therefore training, etc., of staff can then take place. The second area is focused on empty homes. As the executive member will be aware, Bolton is an outlier amongst other GM areas with regards to the number of empty homes that we have here in Bolton. Having recruited an empty homes coordinator in 2025, good progress has been made in identifying and engaging with owners of nearly 3,000 empty properties, with a view to bringing more back into use. Further funding has been secured and also made available by Greater Manchester and across Greater Manchester for all authorities to increase that capacity further. Their funding sets a minimum target of 24 properties to be brought back into use, which includes a budget for engagement and enforcement roles that require technical knowledge as outlined in the report. The third area is in support of the team switching to a sustained proactive approach across housing standards while maintaining our response capabilities to all statutory requirements and direct complaints. This is also coupled with the additional requirements placed on the authority through new legislation to include the Renters Reform Act. Given the size and increase in the team size, there's also a requirement to add in commensurate management capacity with an additional deputy manager role to lead on proactive targeted operations and recruitment on a permanent basis to a currently vacant admin support role, as detailed in sections 2.20 and 2.21. A copy of the existing and proposed staffing structures are detailed in Appendix 2 and 3. The options available to the executive member are detailed in Section 3, with the financial implications are detailed in Section 4. All costs are met through grants and/or income. The executive member is recommended to approve option 1, which is to approve the establishment and recruitment of the permanent posts and delegate to the Assistant Director for Housing and Community Safety the delivery of the proposed staffing structure, including the approval of relevant job descriptions and recruitment supported by HR. Welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mark, for that presentation. That was very helpful. I will allow any opposition members who have questions or comments to come in first. Please indicate using the electronic hand if you can. Okay, Councillor Wright. Oh, Councillor Wright, you need to just turn your microphone on so we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I should know that by now, shouldn't I? Yeah, it's a huge increase from 200 and odd 250 to 1,000 HMOs. Why has it gone so high, and what are the size of these HMOs? Are they like for like 6 people, or are they much larger premises? And with the new housing staff, it's 2 questions. With new housing officer, will we be getting a grant for that, or is it just coming out of a Bolton Council budget? Thank you.
Yep. So in answer to your query on the first one, the increase is essentially born of bringing into scope all 3 and 4 person HMOs. At the minute, the mandatory licensing scheme that every borough has applies essentially to 5 or more. There's a recognition there's a good number, as you can see by the increase, smaller HMOs that operate in the borough that aren't requiring a license. This will bring those into scope. We're also bringing into scope what you call Section 257 properties, which are converted self-contained flats that don't meet certain building regulations from pre-1991. So those 2 things and the quality concerns with them will be brought into scope, and we'll manage them in the same way we do with other properties that will be subject to the mandatory licensing arrangements. On the second query, all of the funding uplift indicated will be funded through grants and or from income generated, particularly from the additional licensing scheme. That essentially will be self-financing should it be approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So just to be clear, the number that you quoted in your presentation, around 222 to over 1,000, isn't a growth in the number of HMOs. It's a growth in the number that we will have to take some action or observe more than we do now. Yes,
that's correct.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Patel.
Right, thanks, Chair. Just a quick question around the funding of the posts. How many of the posts are sort of determined by the external funding that's going to be sort of in place? Are they sort of directly as a result of the external funding, or are they going to be co-funded? And if they are linked to the grant funding, then are we sort of putting a liability on ourselves moving forward? Because you're saying that grant funding is only there for 3 years. I think the posts are for 5 years. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, so just on the funding, some of this is detailed in section 4, but the licensing, a big chunk of the uplift is associated with additions to those that will support the additional licensing scheme. That is self-funded by the scheme and will run for approximately 5 years. So, and again, should we get to the point where the council would decide against extending that licensing scheme for another up to 5-year period, then we would look to make the necessary adjustments to the staffing accordingly at that time. And it's indicated in the report as well that should we be in a position where future redundancies may be required, from 3 to 5 years into the future, that we have within our reserves the ability to cover that cost, which is again indicated in that particular section. There's also grants that we've received nationally and also from GMCA, the fund of a number of the other roles. They are for a period of 3 years, and again we'd be in a strong position to look at those grants being added to at that point. But again, should they not be, we'll again be in a position where we can look to make the necessary changes to staffing structures, and we've got sufficient reserves within the wider housing budget to accommodate any costs from a redundancy perspective.
Okay, so you're happy with that, Councillor Patel?
Yeah. The only thing is, I mean, would it not be prudent to have them as fixed term contracts rather than full time? Just wondering, because if it's linked to grant funding, then would that not be the best way to do it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go on, Mark.
Yeah, so fixed term posts, if they go beyond 2 years, essentially have the same protected rights as any other full-time employee. So there wouldn't be any benefit doing that, and we restrict ourselves in who we're able to attract to the roles in that regard, which wouldn't help with the recruitment process.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. So, Rachel, your hand came when I assume it's just to make the point that Mark made. So, okay, Councillor Bullock.
Again, with myself, I was going to raise similar to Councillor Wright and what Councillor Patel said, but I'm just wondering about. You have answered, I think, though, but it's about the rise up to 1,000. But like, if this continues, I presume, like you've said, that you'll just have to relook at it about further increase in staffing if it grows, way past what you expected. I presume that's what will happen.
That's correct, Councillor. So I think, again, it's noted within the report that when we get to the point at which the additional licensing scheme comes into to force, should it be approved on the 17th of August, then we'll very quickly be able to identify exactly how many properties we've got, and then we'll be able to make necessary adjustments to the size of the team, particularly if we get a higher number than is expected. Ultimately, the income from that scheme will fully fund the staffing requirement to be able to administer it and enforce it properly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. If there's nothing further, then there's the comments from me on this one. We talk a lot about housing supply in the council, and we certainly do need to increase the supply of housing in Bolton for people. But what that overlooks is the standard of property that's already here, and more than 3,000 empty homes that we have here as well. So this is a fantastic opportunity to make an investment into driving up the standard of private rented property, HMOs, and also bringing empty properties back into use. And it's very positive that we're going to be able to do that with grant funding rather than having to use huge amounts of our own budget to do so. Specifically on HMOs, prior to the introduction of Article 4, somebody could convert a house into an HMO for fewer than 6 people and never have to tell us about it. They didn't need to get planning permission, and they didn't need to get a license. And so there's lots out there that we didn't know about. So the 1,000 figure mark, I think I'm correct in saying, is a something of an estimate, and there may be more. But we'll find that out when we introduce the licensing regime, if indeed it is agreed by Cabinet. So I think it's very positive that we're then looking at licensing, which will retrospectively enable us to control the standard of HMOs which already exist and never really crossed anybody's desk in the town hall. So I welcome this great piece of work on building a structure with external funding to drive up the standard of existing property in Bolton, and hopefully the additional regulatory hoops that people will have to jump through to develop HMOs in Bolton will put people off. Because as much as we would like to, we cannot just issue a blanket ban on the development of HMOs. But what we can do is use the tools in our armoury, like licensing and additional planning permission, to make it a bit of a cumbersome process. And if people think that Bolton's too much trouble to develop an HMO and they go and do it somewhere else, then I'm not a councillor for somewhere else, I'm a councillor in Bolton. As I was speaking, I saw Councillor Galloway's hand going up. Anne?
Thank you, Chair. When they're licensed, when the HMOs, which are less than 6, are licensed, are we going to get, would it be possible to have a map of where they're all kind of situated? I noticed there was the map in the report, but I couldn't make it out at all. And of course, it wouldn't have everything. But I mean, it would be publicly available information, I imagine, and it would be quite useful to see where they're being where they are kind of congregated. Thank you. If someone could answer.
Thanks, Councillor Galloway. I guess it would be possible to build something of a map once people start applying for licenses. I think how we use that information is to be determined, and we could certainly consider that. Do officers have a view? Mark?
Yeah, so it's something that we can do. I'd be mindful that we'd need to do that at a relatively high level, so we don't start identifying individual premises in a public environment. And so what we can do is produce a high-level report, essentially looking at the percentage saturation of HMOs in particular wards, for example, is something that we possibly could do. We can take that query away from this meeting and look at how best we can achieve it to get that balance right.
Yeah, that would. Thank you very much. That would be useful. It's just obviously it's not addresses, but just to get the idea of saturation, because it does come up in planning. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Galloway. Thanks, Mark. If there is nothing further from anybody else on the call, then I accept the report and the officer recommendation for option 1. So we're prepared for, if the licensing regime is introduced as a result of a cabinet decision, to start acting upon that. So option 1 accepted by me. All good, Vicky?
Yeah, that's great. I'll stop the recording.
Thank you.